Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Chainsaw Reacts podcast. As you guys can already tell, I'm doing something a little bit different. I am covering and reviewing two seasons of television I just finished watching, and of course, as you can already tell by the title of this podcast, Arrow Season 3 review and The Flash Season 1 review. I watched both shows back to back as they were shown on TV back in 2014 into 2015. So I'm going to be going over those. I'm going to start off with the Arrow first because the Arrow has been on TV for two seasons. This is the third season. I know some of you have opinions on season 3, and I know a lot of people had issues with season 3. I'm going to give my overall review, of course, spoilers for season 3. I'm going to go into a little bit of that. And the second topic will be the Flash season 1 review, spoilers, of course, and going into all that as well. So hope you guys are ready and excited. Of course, time starts are in the description if you want to jump ahead to the Flash season 1 review and then you want to jump back to Arrow, whatever you want to do. But let's start off, guys. First topic, which is season 3 of Arrow review, of course, spoilers. So first things first, I want to get this out of the way. I really enjoyed season 3 of Arrow. I know a lot of people had issues with season 3 of Arrow, and I understand there were some plot issues and there were some things that they did in the season that kind of made people go, really? Like, that's the direction they're going to go? But for me personally, I was in for the ride. When the first couple episodes of season 3 were starting up, I'm like, I'm hooked. I'm ready. I don't care what direction they go. I want to see where this goes because the first couple episodes just really seemed interesting to me, and I just wanted to follow along with what they were doing. So anyways, let's jump into it here and pull up the Wikipedia. So of course we have on the season, if it will freaking load for me. Oh my god, the thing is taking forever. Okay, here we go. So we have, of course, the main cast: Stephen Amell as Oliver Queen, the Arrow; Kate Cassidy as Laura Lance, Black Canary; David Ramsey as John Diggle; Willa Holland as Thea Queen, aka Speedy; Emily Bett Ricard as Felicity Smoke; Colton Hayes as Roy Harper, Arsenal; ugh. John Barrowman as Malcolm Merlin, Dark Archer, Raza Ghul, ooh, spoiler; and Paul Blackthorne as Captain Quentin Lance. So that's the main cast. Of course, we have a bunch of recurring cast. I'm not going to go down the whole line, but that's the main cast for season 3. And overall, I felt everybody I just mentioned as, of course, the actor, actress, and their part they play on the show, I felt everybody did a fantastic job, especially Stephen Amell once again as the Arrow. I felt like he did another fantastic job on this season. I know a lot of people don't like Laura Lance, the new Black Canary for this season, Katie Cassidy, but I felt that she did a pretty good job, and her becoming the Canary I felt was a very interesting kind of subplot in the show because, Sarah, spoilers, season 3, episode number 1, she gets killed off at the end of the episode, I believe, and that's that, and so she has to become the new Canary, and she calls herself the Black Canary, so there's that. David Ramsey, I really enjoy his kind of subplot throughout the show too, as him becoming a father and him becoming a husband and all that kind of stuff and dealing with everything. Thea Queen, that was something that I felt was a very strong point in the show because, she finds out, of course, at the end of season 2 that, of course, Malcolm Merlin is her real father, and then actually Malcolm is actually training her sword fighting and all this kind of stuff and basically helping her become a warrior and all that kind of stuff, and she's allowed to go back to Starling City and all that. So but I felt like that whole subplot of Thea Queen being trained by Malcolm, her real father, and then her finding out that Oliver is the Arrow and all that, and then she actually becomes Speedy, aka the Red Arrow, at the end of the season, I felt was a very good thing, and I really enjoyed overall her arc as a character from episode 1 of season 3 to the last episode of season 3, so that was really, really good. Felicity Smoke. I know a lot of people had issues with Felicity Smoke as well. A lot of people online, I heard about this even before I watched the show. I just heard a lot of people started to hate Felicity Smoke in the show, and I started watching it, of course, and I ended it last night, season 3, as I'm recording this podcast. Ended it last night, and I understood why people had issues with Felicity Smoke. There was a lot of crying in season 3 from her character. And for me personally, I felt that it was justified in most cases where she was going over the top, because you know throughout the season she loves Oliver. She doesn't want him to get hurt. She doesn't want him to do all these crazy things, and he's making a lot of decisions that go against his previous ways of doing things as the Arrow and with the team, and he's basically just going off the wall a lot of the times, and she's just losing it, and it's just really obviously weighing down on her as a character. And I have no personal issue at all with her going over the top as she does. Is it too much crying? Sure, but at the same time, there's a lot of heavy stuff going on in the season. Colton Hayes as Roy Harper, aka Arsenal, the first Red Arrow, if you want to go that direction, but Arsenal. I felt like his character was very very good in this season. I'm kind of depressed a little bit, kind of sad that his character he just ups and leaves, because he exposes himself as the Arrow to help Stephen Amell basically get released from prison. But I think Roy Harper, the character, should have stayed around into season 4. Maybe he'll pop back up at some point, maybe season 4, maybe season 5 if they continue on after season 4. But overall, I mean, before he leaves, I felt like he was a great addition to the team, and he really did help out, and it was a good addition to the show. John Barrowman as Malcolm Merlin. This guy's still a menace. There's a lot of shit he does. I mean, Jesus, he freaking he gives Thea, his own daughter, this type of plant in order for her to be under suggestion where she doesn't remember what she's doing, kind of like mind control. And she kills Sarah Lance, the original Canary, in the beginning of season 3, and you don't find out till a little bit later that she was the one who actually shot the arrows. Originally, they thought Colton, aka Roy Harper, in the show was under his whole Miraku, I think that's how you say it, or however, I probably butchered whatever thing he was ingested in season 2, and he was throwing arrows at Sarah Lance, and she fell off, but it turns out Theo was the one that killed the original Canary. And it's just like, holy freaking Jesus. And Malcolm Merlin, of course, ends up being Ra's al Ghul as a deal where him and Oliver kind of team up to take out Ra's al Ghul together. But Malcolm Merlin is still a ruthless and very dark person, but he seems to kind of go the anti-hero a little bit, the anti-hero a little bit in this season. Paul Blackthorne is Captain Quentin Lance, of course, the father of Laura Lance and Sarah Lance, who, Sarah Lance bites the dust. I felt like Quentin Lance as a character overall was working with the Arrow, and then his whole thing where he finally finds out his other daughter, who originally died, and then she came back and then she actually dies again. He hates everything. He hates his own daughter, Laurel. He hates the Arrow. He hates everything, and he's so damn mad. And I wish that he would have actually just kind of pulled through this whole anger thing a little bit sooner in the show, but I mean, it is what it is. It's his daughter who originally died, but she didn't die. She comes back, and he can't believe it, and then he finally accepts her back, and then they trick him a little bit with some voice audio tampering and all this kind of stuff, and then he finds out, oh yeah, your daughter is still dead. She actually died this time, so you can actually mourn now because she's actually dead. Oh god, it was very very brutal, but it is what it is. The reoccurring cast, I know I'm just rambling on here, guys, but I want to go through some of the characters, some of the stuff I liked. Reoccurring cast, the ones that stand out the most, of course, is Brandon Routh as Ray Palmer, the Atom. I love this addition to the show. I felt like the Atom character as a whole was really really cool to see that kind of angle of kind of like the Iron Man. I know people don't like the comparison to Marvel DC, but it is. It's the Iron Man angle with a guy who has just tons of money, can build a suit and do all this crazy stuff, and that's what he does. I really felt like Brandon Routh was a great addition, and I can't wait to see him in Legends of Tomorrow. And I felt like the ending scene, because it doesn't explain it if you're watching it in real time, the building explodes where he's in trying to basically make the suit go smaller as an atom, kind of like the Ant-Man of the Marvel, and DC kind of goes small, and explodes, and you don't know what happens. Of course, you find out later he didn't really die, but there you have it. Matt Nable as Ra's al Ghul. My God, he was a fantastic addition to the show. Now, let me say this real quick. I'm going to go into some positives about Matt on the show as Ra's al Ghul, because I felt like he was a great addition to the season, the story. I personally wish, this is my negative, Ra's al Ghul was more featured in the beginning season of the show, and it felt like that his character was not really drawn out too much at the beginning. He was heavily featured, of course, in the second half of the season, but it felt like that there was a slow build to kind of seeing his character for the first time. I believe he was first shown in episode 4 at the end of the show, at the end of the episode, and then there's a couple of episodes where you don't see him again. You might hear his name as a reference, but he's not shown again until a couple episodes later. And of course, the big fight between Oliver and Ra's al Ghul on the top of the mountain. I'm going to get to a couple of those things at the end of going through some of these characters I want to talk a little bit about. But Matt Nable was a great addition as Ra's al Ghul. I really felt his presence. He's a very hard-hitting villain, and you can kind of see his side of everything. You kind of see why he believes the things he believes and why he's doing the things he wants to do. So it's not really too off the wall and crazy about the stuff he wants and everything. And he wants Oliver to become the new Ra's al Ghul, but it's definitely a very nice addition. And I heard rumors, that they were originally going to try to get Liam Neeson, who played Ra's al Ghul in the Batman Begins, and he wasn't available. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but if that was true and Liam Neeson shows up as Ra's al Ghul, that would mean it's connected to the Batman Christopher Nolan universe, and it would completely destroy the Christopher Nolan movies, because now we have Flash, we got these metahumans, we got magic coming in season 4 with Constantine. Come on, people. That would not work. I'm glad they didn't go with Liam Neeson personally, just because of that, because it would completely destroy the Dark Knight trilogy. Anyways, continuing on here. Cynthia Adai, probably butchered that. Cynthia Robertson, I'm not going to try to say her middle name, as Amanda Waller. Okay, number one, I enjoy the actress who played Amanda Waller. I hate Amanda Waller, especially in the flashbacks. Jesus Christ, she is a horrible person. I hate Amanda Waller. Shoot her in the face. I'm tired of her. I hate Amanda Waller so much. Okay, we had a couple of other villains. We had Wildcat, we had Brick, we had Cupid, we had Vertigo, I believe that's a villain. I'm just reading off the list here. I was at Captain Boomerang, and we had Slade Wilson, Manu Bennett, I believe it's how you say his name. We had Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, who showed up in one episode. Wish it was a little bit longer, his his part in that one episode of season 3, but I felt like his addition as Deathstroke, kind of a cool angle fighting off Oliver and Thea on the island, was a good addition, but it could have been a little bit longer. Okay, let's get to the couple of things I actually liked about season 3, and a couple of things that, of course, I have issues with. Of course, one of my negatives I said was, of course, the whole Ra's al Ghul angle, where he wasn't heavily featured in the beginning of the season. I felt like if he was more featured in the beginning of season 3, kind of a building up to the fight, of course, on the mountain, which is a positive, which I'll get to in a second. But I felt like he should have been more heavily featured, because then his villain would have more of an impact on the show if I think he was featured more in the show and he was more involved with the overall arc of the story. Of course, he's heavily involved in the later part of the season, but the beginning, not so much. It's more of like just name reference and all that kind of crap. Like, oh, Ra's al Ghul is real. Oh, Ra's al Ghul. But you don't see him for a bit, so it is what it is. And another negative, of course, is the flashback sequences. I felt like Season 1 and Season 2, especially Season 2, because Season 2 of Arrow is my personal favorite season so far. I'm hoping Season 4 beats Season 2, but I felt like in the Season 3 flashbacks, they weren't as powerful. I mean, overall, it was connecting with what was happening currently in Season 3, but I felt like the Season 3 flashbacks were kind of dull, and I just felt like they weren't really, overall helping. It just made me more mad at fucking Amanda Waller. I cursed. But it was. I was so mad at Amanda Waller. I just hated it. I enjoyed the actress. She played it very well, because she made me hate Amanda Waller so much. But overall, I feel like the flashbacks could have been better. There was one instance where the flashback was focusing on not Oliver, but actually Deadshot, which was kind of interesting. That was actually a pretty interesting flashback segments, but I mean, the flashbacks of Oliver, I honestly just could care less. I was really more focused on the actual story happening at the current time in the show, not what happened in China and wherever the hell. He goes to Starling City. What? When he is under Amanda Waller's control, he goes to Starling City and sees his sister and they think he sees his mom too, but he sees his best friend who dies in the season 1 and kills Thea's drug dealer, Jesus, and and then he leaves. I mean, it's like, come on, but that's just one big negative about the flashbacks and Ra's al Ghul's involvement. And okay, so let's go into the big positives about things that were shown on the show, not character individuals, but actual story elements. Of course, I talked about Thea's story element, which is very, very good. Uh, Now, a lot of people had issues with the Ra's al Ghul angle where Oliver was going to become the next Ra's al Ghul. I enjoyed it because I felt there was something more to this than meets the eye, as the kids say, and Transformers, I believe, say as well. Because he basically he has this deal where in order to save Thea's life and bring her back to life with the Lazarus Pit, he's going to become what Ra's al Ghul wants, which is the next Ra's al Ghul. I enjoyed the angle because I honestly, not at one point, believed Oliver was actually becoming a part of the league and he was losing all faith in his life and he was forgetting his past. I doubted that. But honestly, it was still a nice twist because he actually went so far as to kidnapping John Diggles, his partner's wife, and used her as a trade to get back Ra's al Ghul's daughter. And it was very believable. Everybody who loved Oliver in season 1, season 2, up to season 3 until this happened, hated Oliver, and it was very, very powerful, and all that. The fight on the mountain, the first fight between Ra's al Ghul and Oliver Queen is fantastic. I know some people had issues with the fact that it was short, but it made sense because let's say hypothetically, instead of the 3 to 4 minute fight that Ra's al Ghul and Oliver have, the kind of build up and then the actual fight and then the ending of the fight. Imagine if Oliver lasted 7 or 8 minutes total, the build up, and then there's 6 minutes of fighting, and they're fighting, and there's actual fighting going on, and not a lot of where actually what happens where Oliver's missing and all this kind of stuff, and then freaking Ra's al Ghul's kicking the crap out of him, because if that was to happen, if Oliver would have lasted for a very long time in that first fight on the mountain, which was a great fight, if he would have lasted, let's say 2 extra minutes, then that would basically mean Oliver is almost on par with freaking Ra's al Ghul. But it turns out the real fight is where a lot of the times Oliver's swinging and Ra's al Ghul's dodging and not even trying to defend because he can just dodge the blade without using the other blade. He can just dodge the attacks and he can actually hit back and show he is far superior than Oliver. So when the actual final fight at the end of the season goes down, it shows that Oliver has become stronger and he's more able to fight Ra's al Ghul at a later stage in the season versus when he actually fought Ra's al Ghul. And when Ra's al Ghul stabs Oliver in the chest and kicks him off the freaking side of the mountain 300 style, holy crap, was what I said. I'm like, this is insane. And it blew my mind. I was like, holy crap. I know he's not dead, but Jesus, he stabbed him, like just held it there and kicked him off the side of the mountain. And how far he fell down is what I was trying to get at. How far he fell down was insane. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I don't know how this is going to happen. They brought him back with herbs or something. I don't know, but I took it as it is because my God, he can't kill off the main character 9 episodes in or 10 episodes in or whatever when they found his body. You just can't do it through a season. But it was insane. Another big positive, of course, I talked a little bit about was the whole Black Canary angle with, of course, with Laurel. And I felt like the episode with Vertigo returns. Vertigo is a villain. Yes, I just now remembered. Vertigo is a villain. When the Vertigo returns in a little bit later, I think it's episode 16 or something like that, or maybe a little bit before, where Laurel is hit with, of course, his little drug, and she's actually seeing the actual canary, Sarah Lance, and they're fighting each other when, Laurel's actually fighting the Vertigo, but she's imagining she's fighting the actual canary, Sarah, her sister. That was, I think, a very crucial episode because it shows that Laurel has to be different than the canary. She can't just pretend or copy and paste and do what her sister was doing as the canary. She needs to become her own hero, her own canary, the Black Canary, and I think that was a very crucial episode. The crossover with the Flash, I think, was great. Seeing them together and kind of seeing where Flash's angle of like, you don't need to torture people to get information, where Flash kind of sees how the Arrow does his things. I mean, but I just felt like overall the crossover on this. I talked about the first crossover on the Flash on the review of the Flash, but the crossover episode on here I felt was a great episode. It really shows the different dynamics between the two characters. And of course, the little bit of kind of surprise where Barry shows up. Of course, we're in the lair, the dungeon. I forget what it's called in the show, where they're all held captive essentially, where everyone's put into like a chamber room, and then Flash shows up to save them and all that kind of stuff. Was a nice addition. Is there? Now Captain Boomerang, of course, was in the crossover episode with the Flash and all that kind of stuff. So that was really really good. Um, oh, excuse me. I was like, I just got a text message and I have to respond. Um, and so overall, I felt like season three was a great season. I really enjoyed all the things that was in it and everything because I felt that overall it shows character development. It showed great action. I enjoy the performances everyone gave. I enjoy the villains they gave. Because what I really like about Arrow and what I like about the other shows they're going to be doing, Legends of Tomorrow and, of course, Flash, that they've already done, but that they're introducing not every character, not every villain they're introducing is a major villain. Like, there are villains that you really need to dig deep, like, look a little bit into their backstory and look a little bit back about their, origins and all that kind of stuff. I like the fact that a lot of the times they're introducing some villains in episodes that, are just, you got to look up their information because it's kind of like, kind of gives you a little bit of a history lesson to these characters. I like that addition. I'm glad that they're not just picking villains everybody knows, but I really enjoyed the fact that they got Ra's al Ghul in Arrow because that's a major Batman villain, but they are able to get Ra's al Ghul in the show, so that was a very good addition. Overall, if I gave it a rating out of 10 for season 3 of Arrow, not comparing it to season 1 or season 2, on its own as a season 3, out of 10, 10 being the best, 0 being complete garbage, go die. I'll definitely give it an 8 out of 10. An 8, I think, is a good number for season 3 of Arrow. And hoping season 4 of Arrow is fantastic. Okay, so let's take a sip of the drink, guys. I know I rambled a little bit there, but my reviews are not as everyone else's. I just go all over the place. Take a sip of the drink, we'll get to the Flash review. Okay, season 1 of the Flash. Let's get into this thing, guys. So, first off, we're going to talk about basically go through a rundown of main cast, and we're going to talk a little bit about what I felt like they did on the show, and then I'll go through some of the recurring cast, and then we'll go through some of the things. So basically, what I just did for season 3 of Arrow. If you listened to that segment, if you did not skip ahead, I'm gonna do the same thing. Run through main cast, go through some of the recurring cast, then go through some of the things the main cast brought to the table. Grant Gustin as Barry Allen the Flash, Candace Patton as Iris West, Daniel Panabaker as Dr. Caitlin Snow, Rick Cosnot as Detective Eddie Thawne, Carlos Valdez as Cisco Ramon, Tom Kavanaugh, I probably butchered that, Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash, Dr. Harrison Wells, and of course Jesse L. Martin as Detective Joe West. Of course, spoilers, people, if you don't know this already, because I already spoiled it by saying Dr. Harrison Wells is actually Eobard Thawne and the Reverse Flash. So if you've not seen season 1 of Flash, you just got screwed by a major spoiler. Anyways, let's go back to the main cast a little bit first, then I'll go to some of the recurring cast, and go some negatives, positives, and all that good stuff. So Grant Gustin as Barry Allen the Flash. I felt Grant Gustin was a great addition to the universe, and then him getting his own show, and I really enjoyed his performance as the Flash. I really enjoyed the overall arc of his story, mainly because, of course, he's the main character and it's his show, but the fact that he started off kind of scared and kind of course, a juvenile. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He's kind of just winging it, and, of course, Dr. Harrison Wells is trying to basically help him through all this kind of stuff and helping him become better and become the Flash and not just Barry Allen in a costume running around really fast. But overall, I enjoyed his story arc and him becoming, much more mature as the Flash, as much as he can be without going over the top and becoming too serious like Oliver in some cases. So the Flash has to have some humor and some fun in it as well. But there's got to be some hard, heavy moments. So I really enjoyed his performance, and I really enjoy the overall arc of the story of the Flash and seeing him progress and become better with that character. Iris West, of course, his long lost love, because he can never have her, and she finally finds out, and all that kind of stuff. I enjoyed Candace Patton's performance as Iris West. I felt like she was a great addition. Her meeting the Flash and her basically trying to learn about the Flash and writing about the Flash and all this kind of stuff, and seeing her and Barry Allen's dynamic as characters and seeing them, be best friends. And you can see that kind of tension, and maybe there's something there, but we think Barry only thinks that way, but Iris might as well. So they might get together, they might not. It's a love angle thing, but it is what it is. Then the love triangle comes in with Eddie Thawne. I'm skipping ahead, but Rick Costin as Eddie Thawne. I felt like he was a good addition. I felt like his character could have been a little bit better. I mean, I enjoyed his character, but I feel like Eddie could have been better used, I think, in the show, besides being Barry Allen's love's boyfriend. Iris is dating Eddie, and Barry wants Iris, but nope, can't have her because she's with Eddie. So I felt like they could have made Eddie a little bit better of a character, but they gave him a really good, interesting side plot that kind of overall goes into the main plot, where he's actually the grand great grandfather of Eobard Thawne, who turns out to be Dr. Harrison Wells in disguise. The Reverse Flash. Turns out Eddie is related to Eobard Thawne, who we turned out that he's in the future. But, there you have it. They could have made Eddie a little bit better. Let's go back up one. Daniel Panabaker as Dr. Caitlin Snow. I really enjoyed her performance. Her being the quirky person sometimes, her being the super scientific person with Cisco, of course, on the show. Dr. Caitlin Snow, I felt like had a very cool subplot in the show where her soon-to-be husband was killed in the accelerator, which turned out later he wasn't actually killed in the accelerator. That made the Flash and made all the metahumans that were villains in the show and all that kind of stuff like that. But you kind of think, okay, well, maybe something will happen to that. Maybe, at one point, maybe Dr. Caitlin Snow is going to end up with Barry. Who knows? Maybe the Flash ends up with not the crazy, but the doctor or the scientist or whatever. But it doesn't turn out that way. But so there you have it. But Dr. Caitlin Snow, I like her character. Can't wait to see what she does in season 2. Cisco Ramon. At first I thought I was going to hate Cisco, because when I heard about this before I watched the show. I heard that Cisco on the show, even though he is kind of even though Barry has humor in the show, the Flash has humor, Cisco also has humor as well. I hated the fact when I was hearing that Cisco also has humor and he is naming the villains. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? He's naming the villains of the show, like when they show up, Plastique and Captain Cold and all this kind of stuff, and then naming other characters as well. Who else did he name in the show? Let's see, the Weather Wizard, and I think he said Pied Piper and Peekaboo or something. I'm just trying to think. He just named a lot of the villains, and when I heard about this before I watched the show, I heard about it and going like, ugh. But when I watched the show, it made sense in the context of it, because Cisco is naming the villains because they're trying to, make light of the fact that there's people running around who were affected by the accelerator that changed Barry Allen into the Flash. They were trying to make light of the whole situation, so it personally made sense. But I enjoyed Cisco as a character, but I enjoyed a lot of the other characters a lot more. Tom Cavanaugh, probably mispronounced his last name. Dr. Harrison Wells, but also known as Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash. Him in the wheelchair, I'm like, he's in a wheelchair. He's helpful. He's helping the Flash. He's helping the team. They're catching villains. And then when you finally see him get up out of that stinking wheelchair, I'm like, you motherfucker. I knew something was up with you. And he becomes he's been the Reverse Flash. And then you learn about these flashbacks where he actually got the car of Harrison Wells to basically topple over with a spike strip. And Dr. Harrison Wells, the real Dr. Harrison Wells, his wife dies. Dr. Harrison Wells is still alive, and he basically injects him with some kind of thing, and then Eobard Thawne injects himself with this kind of device, and then he becomes Dr. Harrison Wells and kills the original Dr. Harrison Wells. And Eobard Thawne is from the future, and he comes back in time, and it's a whole time travel thing. Eobard Thawne in the future is the Reverse Flash, and then him and the Reverse Flash and Flash go back in time, and Reverse Flash kills Barry's mother when Barry was 11. Unfortunately, Reverse Flash could not go back into his original time, so he was stuck. So he decided he wanted to become a doctor and create the accelerator to create the Flash and all this kind of stuff. It's a whole big time travel thing here. But Eobard Thawne's plan was to use this device to become Dr. Wells, and it worked. And when the accelerator basically malfunctioned, he put himself in a wheelchair to pretend his legs didn't work, but he's actually Reverse Flash. So there's that, and that was a very good story angle there. I'll get to that a little bit later. Jesse L. Martin is Detective Joe West. Jesse L. Martin, of course, is from the show Law and Order. He was on there for quite some time, and it was awesome to see him come back as a detective, but in a really cool way. And I like the fact that he is the one that actually finds out who Barry is right off the bat. Like when Barry Allen stops the first metahuman, the first villain of the show, essentially. I like the fact that Joe West, who basically he was a Detective Joe West, the character was the one that brought Barry Allen into his home when Barry was 11 to raise him as his own son. Once Barry Allen's mother was killed, and his father, Barry Allen's father, was wrongly imprisoned for it. You find out in the show that he was wrongly imprisoned for his wife's death, and Barry Allen is taking in, and so I like the fact that Detective Joe West is the father of the show. Technically, even though he's not the biological, he is the father figure of the show. And I like the fact that he finds out who Barry is right away. So that's a very, very good addition for that there. Dr. Henry Allen, of course, is played by John Wesley Shipp, the original Flash from the original TV show. I like the fact that John Wesley Shipp is in the new Flash show, and he was the original Flash from the 1990s show, and he plays Barry Allen's father. I think that was a great addition. I really like the fact that the original Flash is playing, of course, the prisoner, the wrongful prisoner of the show, the father, and he is the father of the new Flash. I don't know why, I just really like that. Robbie Amell as Ronnie Raymond Firestorm, which I think was a very, very cool thing there. Of course, he also is he's also a half of Firestorm with Victor Garber as Professor Martin Stein, the other half of Firestorm, where they kind of fused together, which is very, very cool. So Firestorm as a character was a good addition to the show. Very, very cool to see that. He only appears a couple times, but overall, I like the fact that they had Firestorm in the show. Wentworth Miller as Captain Cold, which is very, very cool. And looking for his partner. Where is his partner? I know it's on here. Dominic Purcell as Heatwave, and seeing them both together with their Heatwave with the fire gun and the cold gun was very, very cool. And Captain Cold and Heatwave, of course, are going to be on Legends of Tomorrow, but they were good additions to the show. So there you have it. Michelle Harrison as Nora Allen, of course, Barry's mom. It was very, very cool. There was a lot of intense stuff. My God, we'll get to all the really heavy stuff in a second. Felicity Smoke appeared on the show. The Arrow appeared on the show, which was very, very good. Grodd, they had Grodd. Ooh, my God. Grodd was awesome, and then when I saw the way the show ended, I'm like, the episode ended, I'm like, no, Grodd is not dead. No. I'm glad they're going to hold off Grodd. They're probably going to bring back Grodd maybe in Season 2, maybe wait till Season 3, because they've announced a couple things for Season 2, which I'm like, oh my God, Season 2 is going to be amazing. But Season 1, Grodd was cool. I like the fact that they had him in the show, but the fact that he's not dead is pretty interesting to me. We also have, of course, let's not forget, people, we also had freaking Mark Hamill as the original Trickster from the original Flash show. Now, what I liked, there was a scene that Mark Hamill and John Wesley Shipp, the original Flash and the original Trickster, had a scene together, and it was just really cool to see them both on screen together again. It's like the original Trickster and the original Flash, and the original Trickster is playing the Trickster on the show, and John Wesley Snipe John Wesley Shipp, is not playing the original Flash, but he's playing the father of the Flash. It was just awesome, an awesome geek moment. It really, really was. And they had a couple other villains, kind of like some throwaway villains, but they were still cool for the overall arc of the story. But overall, there you have it with those characters. I got to take a sip of the drink, guys. My voice is dying. I'm still going on. I still got to talk about some other stuff before we end it. Okay, so negatives. Do I have any negatives for the show before I get to all my positives? Well, like I mentioned, they were kind of at the end. They had some villains that were good for the overall arc of the story, but didn't really represent a humongous threat for Flash. Mainly, it felt that some of the villains they had for the show, some of the people that were affected differently from the accelerator that created the Flash, that supposedly put Dr. Wells in a wheelchair, which he actually didn't, but that's all a lie, it felt like some of the villains were added into the show from episode to episode to kind of train Barry to become better at being the Flash. And you kind of feel that way, but at the same time, for me, I felt that, okay, this villain who can, if she can see where if she can look at something, she can disappear and reappear over there. If she can see it from where she's at, she can disappear and reappear over in that section. I felt like that villain specifically was intentionally added just to make it harder for the Flash, make it harder for Barry Allen to overcome this villain. So it was still really, really cool to see that, but at the same time, you could obviously tell that that there were some villains they added in just to train Barry to become better at being the Flash, becoming a better hero, and able to stop these certain villains that have these different type of powers, different type of things they can do to kind of trick the Flash in doing different things. So, but that's not really a humongous gripe because they had to have some sort of plot, some sort of villain, or whether it's an overarching villain, Reverse Flash, or a villain that's going to be appearing later or appearing in one episode. They had to have some sort of threat in order to make make the episode worthwhile. But that's just really a small gripe. And then I already talked about where I felt like Eddie Thawne could have been a better character, and I felt like Cisco, I thought I wasn't gonna like Cisco. I liked the character, but I wish I could like him more. But Eddie Thawne mainly, I wish they could have used him a little bit better. It felt like he was just kind of a tag along, and he's only around to be the issue that Barry can't be with Iris because Iris is dating Eddie. It was just the whole triangle thing there, but it is what it is. To some positives, so of course, I already said, I felt like Barry Allen overall, becoming the Flash is a huge thing. It's a huge payoff, I think. And I noticed that a lot of the heavy hitting moments that they really built this show up. Like at first, they really built the show up to be kind of more of a lighter show, but when we get to the later episodes, when they all find out that Dr. Harrison Wells is not who he says he is actually Eobard Thawne. I'm probably butchering his name. He's Reverse Flash, okay? He's from the future. He's Reverse Flash. He's stuck in the timeline. He's Reverse Flash. Let's just stick with that. I'm not going to say his name again. Thawne, Eobard, whatever, Reverse Flash. When they find out that Harrison Wells is actually Reverse Flash and he's not who he says he is, that's when the show got dark. That's when the show went heavy on the dramatic elements. And I think that was a great, great thing because it really switched the show up. Because at a certain point, the show was becoming kind of like, okay, this is the beat, this is the beat, this is the beat. Okay, break, beat, 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 break, beat, 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 break. And eventually they changed it up with the major reveal. They find out who he is. And now Harrison Wells knows because they find out who he is. And then he finds out when they know, and then everything goes to a head. And what I really liked, especially, is that when they kind of made a surprise in the beginning of the show, with Oliver showing up, the Arrow, to kind of give him some advice, being the Flash. And then the second to last episode, there's 23 episodes. The 22nd episode, we had Flash, Firestorm, both them combined, both halves of Firestorm together, and the Arrow taking on Reverse Flash. There's a short segment where, of course, Oliver Queen shoots Reverse Flash with an arrow that was designed by Ray Palmer, aka the Atom, that basically slows down his movements. He's not able to run around. So there's some fisticuffs, hand-to-hand combat with Arrow and Reverse Flash, which is really, really awesome. And to see them actually catch him, and then so there's a whole plot device that they're actually going to Barry, is going to go back in time. The last episode, which there's a lot of stuff building up to this, but the main focus of why this show was so good because it built up to this moment. The last episode, Barry was going to go back in time. He was going to run fast enough. He was going to create a black hole and go back in time and save his mom from that night when she was killed by Reverse Flash. And they find out that Barry from a future timeline went back with Reverse Flash. We don't know what happened to the original Flash who came back in time with Reverse Flash to try to stop Reverse Flash from killing his mom when he was 11. But when he was about to save his mom, the other Flash from the future timeline that came back with the Reverse Flash to try to stop him told the original Barry Allen from this timeline that we've been keeping up with, told him no. So when his mom is stabbed, the Reverse Flash leaves. What's so heavy and hard-hitting, I think, that they held off the most dramatic moments and the most cinematic moments for the final episode, which I felt was great. It was a great payoff. The dramatic moments, especially when he goes to his mother, who is, of course, laying there on the floor dying. And I think it was cool and very, very powerful where he takes off his mask, reveals he is Barry from the future. She knows it's Barry, and it's hard hitting. I mean, honestly, if you watch the entire season of season 1 of Flash, and you get to that point where he's talking to his mom who's laying on the ground dying, he could have saved her. He could have ignored the other Flash and saved her, but he didn't. So instead, he goes and talks to her, and if you have watched the entirety of season 1 of Flash up to this point and you do not have a tear or two, or your eyes don't start watering in that segment, in that scene, you don't have a soul. It is so hard-hitting. I didn't expect it. I thought, well, maybe he saves her and then something else happens and then it causes it to not change. The timeline does not change. But, man, they really push for this very dramatic scene. I'm like, oh, my God. And then, she finds out who he is. He says who he is. She dies, and he's, and then he goes back and stops Reverse Flash from returning home. And basically all the fighting goes down. Eddie Thawne, who we find out who is the great grandfather of the Reverse Flash. As Reverse Flash is from the future, so of course this is the great grandfather. Eddie kills himself to prevent Reverse Flash from killing Barry, to preventing Reverse Flash from killing everybody. Eddie kills himself to prevent Reverse Flash from being born. Eobard Thawne. I mispronounced it again. I tried. Excuse me. And at that point, you're like, jeez Louise. Okay, well, he killed off a main character of the show. And then you would think, okay, maybe the show is, the season is done. Nope. The black hole reappears again. And after all that, Eddie dies about 3 minutes before this. And then Flash says, I need to go try. Barry Allen's like, I need to try to stop this. And he goes, and the cinematic thing comes in. The black hole's in the sky. It's destroying buildings. It's bringing up cars and everything. And then buildings are starting to be ripped off from the ground. And Flash runs up the building and runs into the black hole and starts spinning around counterclockwise against the black hole current. And the show ends. And so I honestly can't wait to see what happens season 2, episode 1, because I've heard that season 2, episode 1 is going to finally answer the question, what happens with Barry Allen going in that black hole? What happens? Because they end it. They don't show you. He runs into frame and then it's done. But if you've not seen the ending of that cinematic shot where the black hole's in the sky and Flash is going to try to stop it by running counterclockwise against it, man, it's so cinematic. You're thinking like, this could be a movie. And then it makes me think this too. After watching this season 1 and loving season 1 of this show, a lot of great characters, a lot of great cast members, a lot of great stories, some great subplot stories, everything just great. It makes you go, I want Grant Gustin as the cinematic Flash too. I want everything to be connected like Marvel. I understand they want to keep the movies and the DC shows separate, so TV is on a separate universe and the movies are on a different universe. But I mean, honestly, there's time travel. Grant Gustin, Barry Allen, the Flash, he's so good. They've already talked there's time travel. He time traveled in the past. There's got to be alternate dimensions at some point. So the Flash, he could show up in the cinematic movie universe because there are alternate timelines. They've already did time travel, so now they can create black holes to go into an alternate universe. I believe Earth 2, which is going to be the second Earth with, of course, Jay Garrick, is another universe, another timeline, so they could do something like that, but of course they won't. So you have it. That's my review. Of course, like I said, guys, my reviews are different. I'm not going to be sitting here and going through each episode and I'm talking about the main points, what I really liked, some of my dislikes, my favorite episodes, all that kind of junk. So there you have it. That's my review of The Flash Season 1. And so my overall rating out of 10 being amazing, 0 being complete crap. I give The Flash Season 1 a 9 out of 10. It's a fantastic season. Even though I had some gripes about some of the villains just being put in there just to give Barry a challenge, still a great season. Definitely worth watching. I highly recommend, if you've not seen Arrow Season 1, 2, or 3, watch Arrow Season 1 and 2, watch Arrow Season 3 and The Flash back-to-back as they aired, so Flash first, Arrow second, and go back and forth. because that's what makes the experience better. There's a lot of talks, like not every episode's a crossover with characters, but there's a lot of references to Arrow and Flash on each show, so definitely do that. So there you have it. 9 out of 10 for Flash, 8 out of 10 for Season 3 of Arrow. What do you guys think of Arrow and Arrow Season 3 specifically and The Flash Season 1? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for checking out the podcast. Check out past podcasts if you have not seen them already or heard them because it's audio only. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.